Michigan is the clear favorite on paper. You look at all of the position groups, you look at the units throughout the Hawkeyes and the Wolverines. I think it's fairly clear that Michigan is the better team. Okay, you look at their offense, especially quarterback better, running back better, offensive line better, wide receiver better, tight end better. I don't think that's much of a discussion right there. Defense, of course, that's Iowa's better unit, but Michigan's got a pretty darn good defense as well, one of the top defenses in college football. And then you factor in Jim Harbaugh returning to the University of Michigan sideline as well. A lot of things are going in the direction of the University of Michigan, especially after that big win over the Ohio State Buckeyes this past Saturday. But we're going to break this one down, believe it or not. A lot of people are just throwing it out there. Michigan's going to win and maybe not spending a lot of time talking about the football game. I'm going to talk about this football game. Let's talk about it first from the Iowa Hawkeyes point of view. Aggressive. Iowa needs to come out aggressive on the defensive side of the football. They need to bring pressure. They need to overload the box for a couple of different reasons. I think Iowa needs to focus in on bottling up this run game. We talk about Nick Jackson. We talk about Jay Higgins as two of the top tacklers in the Big Ten Conference. But when I really talk about aggressiveness, I'm talking attack J.J. McCarthy. Try to force a turnover. Try to get Michigan in uncomfortable situations early. Because if this Michigan machine gets humming early, that boa constrictor is going to tighten really early, and they might be out of breath by something like the second quarter or something. So if Iowa can get a turnover early in this football game, if they can get a short field for their offense, maybe get a field goal, who knows, maybe even a touchdown on the board first, that at least gives Iowa some momentum early in this football game. If Iowa comes out in the first 5 minutes, 7 minutes, and it's a 10-point deficit, hell, if it's even 7-0, that's a really difficult spot for this Iowa Hawkeyes team to be in from the outside. You got to generate a pass rush, but I think that is a steep challenge. Look at how Michigan protected J.J. McCarthy through that entire Ohio State game. Ohio State, even though Iowa has some good players up front, Ohio State has more talented pass rushers. And Michigan pass protected J.J. really well against a very good Ohio State pass rush. For Iowa to generate that pass rush, for Iowa to get in there and wreak havoc, considering what we saw last week, I think it's going to be difficult for them to do that, but you can't let JJ stand up right and throw the football down the field. I've been saying it all year long. Michigan can beat you any way they choose to beat you. Iowa, you load up on the run game, JJ's going to throw the football over the top. We'll see how some of these man-on-man matches, I assume we're going to see a lot of one-on-one matchups over the top. Of course, no Cooper DeJean. That really hurts Iowa in this game where maybe they want to come up a little bit and then you have to try to cover over the top. I don't think you're going to be able to do that for an entire length of a football game. It's tough to go up against Michigan for 60 minutes. Some teams have gone with them for 30 or 40 or 45, but the entire 60 minutes is extremely difficult when you play a team as strong and when you play a team as deep as the Michigan Wolverines. I think JJ could have a pretty good game throwing the ball. Because I think Iowa's going to come up to the line of scrimmage. That Michigan run game has been really good. It's where you get back to classic Michigan these last 3 weeks where Sharon Moore has been the acting head coach. Is JJ going to have a better day throwing the ball if Iowa kind of comes up and plays the run a little bit more? I think that could possibly happen. Let's shift gears a little bit to the University of Michigan right now. This is a challenge for Michigan. Believe it or not, I know a lot of people are saying the difference in this game is huge. But let's talk about Michigan for a minute. Everybody in the beginning of the season, everybody out there was talking about how weak this Michigan schedule was. And it is correct. It was not a good schedule right off the bat. And they were putting it on some teams very early in this slate. But November 11th ticked around. And since then, they've been facing off against some of the Big Ten's best defenses, and they faced off against one of the Big Ten's best defenses. No matter which side of the fence you stand on, I think you have to say that this Iowa defense, at the very least, will present some challenges for Michigan. Okay, Michigan could overcome those challenges and look really good, but considering that these two teams haven't played, I think there will be some challenges for the Hawkeyes. So let's talk about Michigan late in the season, how they fared against some of these really good defenses. I mentioned that Veterans Day game against Penn State, the top rushing defense in the country. They rushed for 227 yards, 3 scores, and J.J. McCarthy didn't throw the ball late in that game. Check. They played pretty well throughout that one. 338 yards of total offense against one of the other top defenses, not only in the Big Ten, but in all of college football, in the Ohio State Buckeyes. 338 yards of total offense. Ohio State usually gives up on average around 260, so they played pretty well, putting the ball in the end zone and moving the ball against the Buckeyes of Ohio State. Iowa, talent-wise, might not have Ohio State talent. They might not have Penn State talent, but folks, as a unit, Phil Parker always puts forth a really good defense. And this will be the third really good defense that Michigan will have faced in the past 4 weeks, in theory, going into the college football playoff. There's something to be said about them being prepared going into that type of environment and that type of situation in that playoff when they have faced off against some of the best defenses, not only in this conference, but you could say in all of college football. You look at some of these playoff teams, Georgia, like they're Georgia, they always got talent, but this is not that 2021 team that steamrolled Michigan in the semifinals. Okay, you look at some Oregon, they have a really good rush defense, their pass defense kind of trails behind just a little bit. Washington, right? That's not a great defense. You look at teams like a Texas or a Florida State. The Big Ten Conference, you can say what you want about the Big Ten. They've had really good defense, and Michigan has faced off against some of these premier defenses down the stretch. I think there's a chance early in this game that Iowa could prevent some confusion, possibly for Michigan. It wouldn't surprise me to see the Hawkeyes kind of push back early in this game, and then that kind of puts the pressure on the Iowa offense to be able to do something on this Michigan defense, and I think that's where things maybe fall short just a little bit for the Iowa Hawkeyes. Let's talk more about this Iowa offense. Caleb Brown, that's a big name. Okay, he was a 4-star Ohio State transfer. Everybody was excited for him. And then I'm saying in the middle of the season, where's Caleb Brown? We haven't seen Caleb Brown. He was really getting into the offense, trying to get into the weeds a little bit and really get acclimated. And it kind of took him a while to get to that point. And these past few games, leading up to the injury against Nebraska, which I'll talk about here in just a minute, he became the target that this Iowa pass game wanted to get to. It wasn't Nico Ragaini, even though Addison Ostrenga has really stepped out as of late. It was Caleb Brown. I think we all knew from the outset of the season that Caleb Brown, once he kind of got into the swing of things, he's got so much talent. He was going to be the guy that was going to be that playmaker within this Hawkeye offense, and they need Caleb Brown. So he goes out in the Nebraska game. The two deep depth chart comes out, and he's listed as a starter at one of these positions for this Michigan game. So if he is healthy, that's a big advantage. I think you got to get him the football, move him around the formation kind of things. Maybe you get it to him. They tried some run stuff with him. Just get the ball into the hands of Caleb Brown. I think he provides something that is lacking at the University of Iowa and has been lacking for a while. And now that they have that, they want to take advantage of that big time right now for the Iowa Hawkeyes. This is a Michigan defense that's 6th in the country in rush defense. It's hard for me to imagine Iowa getting a big time push up front. Even though their backs they got 3 pretty good backs with Caleb Johnson, with Jazz Patterson, with LeSean Williams in there. But Michigan is just really good, and they're really deep on the defensive line. I think they're always fresh. That is such a big deal of the depth of a football team, and I think Michigan has some really great depth right now, and I think that really helps them, especially on the defensive line, to be able to stay fresh. When other teams get into the third quarter, they get into the fourth quarter, they start to wear down a little bit. Michigan stays fresh, and the talent, that helps out just a little bit as well. when I really look at this thing from 10,000 feet, it reminds me a lot of 2021, right? A lot of people ride Michigan going into that game. Iowa's got a good defense. Iowa doesn't have a good offense. I'm trying to be nice here. I'm trying to be really nice here. That game was 14-3 at half. I could see it kind of playing out a similar way where because Michigan hasn't got on the field looks, they did not play Iowa earlier this season. I could maybe see things, they got to kind of get in the swing of things against this Phil Parker defense. I could see Iowa maybe pushing back a little bit to start, but like I said, playing a 60-minute game against the Michigan Wolverines is extremely difficult, folks. It's extremely difficult. Okay, I think Iowa could maybe hang around for a little bit, and it all goes back to that aggressiveness I said at the top of this preview, is getting Michigan into uncomfortable situations early, maybe forcing a turnover, things like that. But I think like that eventually the dam seems like it's going to break. That's the way I see it. In 2021, it started off 14-3. It ended up 42-3. Last thing I want to talk about in terms of the preview of this Big Ten title game, I feel like we're being cheated a little bit. There was a big storyline coming into this season. Cade McNamara won the Big Ten title at quarterback for the Michigan Wolverines in 2021. He ends up transferring to Iowa. Beginning of the year, this was a lot of people's pick for the Big Ten title. Michigan against Iowa, and we had that storyline, that revenge factor of Cade McNamara going up against his former team, against J.J. McCarthy, the quarterback that kind of took his job over there at Michigan. That's a really great storyline. Obviously, Cade's going to be there. Obviously, he's going to be supporting his team and Deacon Hill and the rest of that Hawkeye offense and that Hawkeye team. But I just feel like we were cheated a little bit of having that possible rematch scenario with Cade McNamara going up against his former team in the Michigan Wolverines. I think this could be a solid game to start. I think Iowa could present some different challenges for Michigan, but in the end, I think the Wolverines will show just how good of a football team they are. In the end, Iowa just doesn't have the complete team, especially on the offensive side of the ball, that Michigan does in this football game, and I think that's why Michigan builds momentum and takes some confidence into the college football playoff.
Thanks for watching Big Ten Ted, where it's all Big Ten all year long. Make sure to like the video to spread the word of Big Ten Ted to the masses, and subscribe to the channel for updates on Big Ten content that drops every day.